Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to On the Mic with Mike. It is the premier business radio program. I'm your host, Mike King. Appreciate you being here with me. This is part of the Mike King Biz Radio Network, which is ESPN Richmond 106.1, the choice on the 5.3, as well as International Business Code Radio. What we do here is we uplift the community and showcase RVA in a different way. What we do is we talk to the game changers out there. We showcase how people help the world be a better place. We have Dr. West with us today. Doc, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. So it's a business show. So tell everybody who you are and what you do.
All right. My name is Dr. Janet West. I am a board certified pediatrician and a board certified lactation consultant. And I am the founder and owner of RVA Baby, which is a premier concierge newborn care service. I provide complete holistic newborn care at home for moms in the first 2 to 3 months after they deliver their babies.
All righty. So what is the thing now? Shout out to our guy, Dr. Joe over at Dandelion. What is this thing with concierge healthcare? Please explain.
Well, what it does is it takes that third party out of medicine. Right now, there's a third party insurance companies,
Yes.
third party payers, and they have a lot of control over what we do and how we do it. And it also drives up costs. And so because medicine is a volume-based business with third party payers, you have to see a certain amount of people to keep the lights on, because that's with the way the system is set up, is fee for service. You don't get to spend a lot of time with your doctor. And that's the biggest disconnect folks are having with medicine. They don't feel like they have a relationship with their doctor. They can't reach out to their doctor when they want them. And concierge medicine or direct primary care is a game changer, because there is no third party in our relationship. I do what's best for you. I don't have to nickel and dime you for time. I don't have to have 3,000 patients on my panel. The cost is very affordable.
Yes, I've learned that.
So it's a monthly fee. And I have two arms to my business. I have a direct primary care like Dr. Joe, but I also have the in-home concierge service, which is like a retainer model. So you can retain me for 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months for care at home for your baby.
One of the things that we see is that model is so different. People, I know when you tell people what you do, they're like, okay, you're a doctor, you're a pediatrician. But then when you take that next step, the people get the glazed look like
they do. And when
we don't understand it. It's so different.
Exactly. When I first started here in town, even pediatricians were like, what are you doing? And it's such a niche practice that it was kind of throwing folks off. But you get at it, you keep at it, you build a reputation, and now people don't give me that sideways look.
Because they get it.
Because they get it. And house calls are coming back. So folks are like, why don't we practice medicine like this anymore? Why can't I have a direct relationship with my provider without having an intermediary? And that's the big difference between direct primary care and the traditional model.
On the microphone, we got Dr. West here with us. So doctors went to medical school to practice medicine. That's what we hear. But now the business side of it, okay, doctor, here you go. The business side of it is, I think, so me and my wife, we go to the VA. And you see those doctors there. Those doctors are right alongside the nurses, the technicians. They put in their 40 or whatever, and they go home and a check shows up.
Yes.
They don't have to deal with all of the other stuff that comes with the business side of a medical practice, the business side of a legal practice, all those things. What does that do for you? I know. So when we went to Dr. Joe, he said that we were going to be in there. The initial visit was going to be an hour. And you're like, okay. But then when you sit there answering questions for an hour,
yes,
it's like, man, an hour's a long time. You know how many doctors we see? We might have waited for an hour.
But
and then got our
5 minutes.
Exactly. You got our 5 minutes in. But it really is that way. Talk about the business side of the medical practice, which concierge medicine, I guess, frees you guys up to spend time with the patients.
That is the challenge for me, because when I started medical school, I started it with a purpose to become a pediatrician, because I had bad experiences as a mom, a young Black mom with a baby who was sick. So my goal was always to be able to provide care and connect with people. And you don't talk about business in medical school. You don't talk about billing. You don't know how the system works. You don't even know that big business is running medicine.
Well, where do you get that information from?
Most people still don't know that information. And so when you go out into the real world to start practicing, and you see that volume rules today, and you have to see 40 kids a day or 35 kids a day, that's when you start looking at, oh my gosh, I have to bill a certain way, I have to do my own coding. I have to do X, Y, and Z. And so now you have a lot of physician burnout. Even in situations where at the VA, I used to work at Fort Belvoir, I worked at Fort Bragg, I worked at Fort Lee as a pediatrician, and those environments still cause a lot of burnout because even though you're interacting with folks and at the end of the day, you go home and you collect a check, there are a lot of hurdles that you have to jump.
They're on skates.
They're on stage, you're jumping
better,
through
yes,
hoops
you
all
are.
day, and I call them fiery hoops. And not only are you rushing to see patients, but there are things that you have to do at your desk. There are boxes you have to check in order to get that paycheck.
So what you're looking at is, so that diminishes all the things that you went to school for, all the patient care things that you love.
Exactly.
All of a sudden now we got the business side of it,
And it's hitting you upside the head because you're not really benefiting from
the business
the
side of it.
business side. And so for me, ethically, I feel like capitalism and medicine should not be
They
intertwined.
need to go together.
Not, there should be no corporate medicine because then you start talking about, the margin instead of taking care of people. We're talking about shareholders instead of taking care of people. And so the hard part for me with my practice is keeping my prices low so that a wide range of people can afford me. So I have business owners, I have wealthy families, I have middle-class families, I have some Medicaid families. So making sure those prices are reasonable and giving everybody the same treatment. The challenge is that I don't make a six-figure salary anymore, but that's okay because my husband does.
Exactly.
And I have the opportunity to do that. But that's not true for every pediatrician out there.
So how long has your practice been open?
Since December 2016.
Okay. You had something. You hang the shingle out, you got all the expectations like all businesses.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know, okay, I might be able to make a go of this?
There's no one big moment where the lights is flipped on and I'm like, I got it. There's some back and forth. There's like,
I got this.
I got this. And then it was like,
Oh.
hey, I quit myself today. Like, why am I not making any money? And then it's like, because it's like feast or famine when you're self-employed. So that's a challenge. But I think in the last 6 months, I feel like, okay, now I have something that is scalable in the sense that I can franchise it and move it into other markets, because it's not the type of business where you put up a shingle, you hire employees and you have staff. This is a relationship that we build with clients. And I think that would be better served by somebody, and say, for example, if we move into the Charlottesville market, someone who's a part of that community, a part of that birthing community doing something like this would be a lot more altruistic and sort of meet my vision of creating relationship, not just generating revenue.
When you look at so people, we had talked before we came on air about parents and people not understanding the process, like the whole having a baby. And there's certain things that people don't get. Explain to our listeners the part that the pediatrician plays, why all the things, whether it's prenatal, after the baby's born, now we're in the crazy cycle of folks not wanting vaccinations and that kind of, hey, I'm going out on a tangent. This is my show. You need to go ahead and there are things that we don't have now because people got vaccinated.
Exactly.
Now all of a sudden people and so you're putting kids at risk, you're putting parents at risk, you're putting everywhere. Talk about that part of it.
So you talked about two different things there: vaccines and trust of science,
yes,
for one thing. But then the other thing is what the role is of the pediatrician. But from conception through pregnancy, through the time that baby is born, and the postpartum is not a linear process in terms of who your caregiver is.
No.
You move from an obstetrician, you're in the hospital for 2 or 3 days with a bunch of strangers, you go home, and then the next day you go to a pediatric office, you spend 5 days with that doctor, and then they send you back home with that little human being. And
with no manual.
But you do have Google, and that's problematic. So
yes, it is.
So my job or my mission is to catch you if you give birth at home. I come to your house a couple days after that baby's born, and I am with you through that journey. I will text my moms in the morning if I know they had a rough night. How are you doing? For my moms that are born in the hospital, they text me when their babies are born, and as soon as they get home from the hospital, I'm right there. Let's talk about where baby's going to sleep. Let's talk about what tonight's going to be like. It's going to be rough for you tonight. Set them up for that. Answer all their questions before they ask them, because I'm so used to it. And the benefit for me is I rarely get middle of the night calls from my families, because I sit on their sofa, take my shoes off,
and get comfortable with them. You're home.
Pet their dog. We're talking about that baby, and it's like part of the family. So there's the one thing. So we're talking about, the difference is pediatricians are there after birth to make sure that baby's gaining weight, to make sure that the baby's not struggling with jaundice and the baby's happy and healthy. That's what your pediatric office does. My job is to make sure that family unit, so it's holistic, mom, dad, and baby. And I always tell my parents, this is not a baby-centric home, this is a family-centric situation. So we all sit around and we talk about what's best for that baby, not just the medical piece. Because to be perfectly honest, the baby is 5 minutes of that is baby. The rest of the time is relationship building and answering questions and helping families learn how to trust themselves, because a lot of parents don't know how to trust their own instinct.
On the mic, Mike, Doc West is here with us. How can people find the information out there about you?
You can check me out on Insta at my RVA Baby or RVA Baby on Facebook. And my website is www.myrvababy.com.
So, you've been in business since 2016, 2019, 2020, you're killing it. You're just gonna make a ton of money and all this, and then Rona shows up and stays. What did that do to you from a business standpoint? And what did you learn from the Corona doing business as well as the practitioner side of you that you're saying, I didn't do that before, but that thing kind of works?
I had a huge boom during Corona. Nobody wanted to go to a hospital. Nobody wanted to give birth in a hospital. Nobody wanted to take their baby into a pediatric office. So COVID was a huge boom for my business. But what it made me more aware of is that common things are still common. And so this year, right, as Corona is kind of becoming a part of everyday life, flu and RSV, which we see all the time.
My grandson gave us something. It wasn't COVID. We look at them different when they show up now because, woo, Lordy,
Yes.
It took us down for a month.
And a lot of that is because we spent so much time inside. We just bred some nice hardy viruses. But my new process now, COVID or not, when I'm visiting families, I always mask. Because
How about when you go out to places?
I have not been unmasked since the last time I did an interview.
Okay,
So you're special.
thank you.
And if I get a sore throat,
You know what time it is.
I'm coming to get
So
you.
when, I think my wife thinks that every time she goes to places, a group of people now, she swears she's gonna get COVID. And some of it is kind of like, okay, I'm getting tempted. It's not that, so she's the one who's always gonna wear the mask.
Mhm.
And, I never got COVID. I didn't. And she didn't go out of the house for a year because it's like, I'm not going out. But when she sees things now, she's like, okay, the grandkids come, nose is running, looking kind of shady.
It's a cold.
Yeah, that's like we run desk doorstep. And now we go to a place and we see a lot of people just like, I'm wearing a mask.
Mhm.
And so you're saying as a medical professional, you do.
Yes, I personally do it because I take care of very vulnerable patients.
Little bit, yes.
Yes, so the last thing I want to do
Is bring that
is
with you.
bring that with me. So I'm vaxxed, I'm boosted, all the things. I got COVID right before Christmas. I had never had it, don't know who I got it from, can't find my patient zero, but it took me out for about 10 days.
It is that. So once again, how can people find you on the socials?
On the socials, my RVA Baby on Instagram. And then I'm RVA Baby on Facebook. And then my website is www.myrvababy.com.
What's the process when a person engages with you? Like, what
do they do? So you go to my website, fill out the contact page. If it's word of mouth, which happens a lot, folks will just text me and they'll go, hey, my sister used you, or my midwife recommended you, and they reach out. We decide what package they want, and then when their babies are born, they text me and we get together and do our business.
And how long do people stay in your practice, or your regular pediatrician and kids are still coming in 8, 10, 9 years old?
I have a small direct primary care practice like Dr. Joe, where I see folks in my office.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those families are families that graduated from RVA Baby, but really didn't want to move on to someplace else.
They took you with.
So
they
convinced me to start this, but really my mission was I would take care of a baby. The mom would have a second baby, and because maybe they didn't want to vaccinate, they'd never seen a doctor. So I wanted to create a space where they felt comfortable bringing their child in at least to be seen, And then I could have the conversation about vaccines
All
with them.
All right, Doc, let's get down with this conversation about the vaccines.
Yes.
Explain to people why we need, okay, so I talked to Dr. Wynn from Massey Cancer.
Mhm.
And so I asked him, yo, man, y'all came up with this thing, this vaccine, to deal with COVID real quick.
Mhm.
And it makes people like me and the people in the streets wonder, you got the fix for COVID so fast. And here we've got other things that take you guys forever. He said, Mike, one of the things that's probably on us that we haven't been good at communicating, we've had that fix, that thing for
That
COVID
research.
right there. And all of a sudden we just tweaked the legal. Remember bird flu and swine? He said those things are
SARS,
there.
yeah.
Then all of a sudden we just tweaked a little bit and all of a sudden we had, the vaccine is there. Because I'm like, people think you guys thought that up in about 15 minutes.
And the other thing that people don't realize is that typically you develop the product, you do this kind of trial, then you do this kind of trial, then you do clinical trials, and then there's like this whole long process, and they did all those things in parallel. So they were developing the vaccine, doing their trials and studies at the same time. That took years off of the production of this vaccine, in addition to having that mRNA technology already in place from previous studies, previous viruses.
There you go. So we need to get, when they said you could get the vaccine, I'm holding up both arms. I'm like, yo, give me everything that you guys got because I want and need it.
Mhm.
And then you had the people who are like, no, I don't believe it. So explain to people where we are now with the vaccines and being vaxxed and boosted and the importance of, and also the aspect of the kids, because this is crazy time with kids as well.
I think the first thing people need to know is that vaccines work, and there's a reason why they're not worried about their child getting polio. There's a reason why you're not worried about your child getting smallpox, because guess what? We did the work. We did the work. In building and talking to people that are skeptical about vaccines, you give them, what's the word I'm looking for? Not the scary scenario, right? You give them real situations though. This is what I've seen. I've seen a baby die from this, and this is what that looked like. You don't see meningitis encephalitis or measles encephalitis, but this is what it looks like. And so if one kid out of 1 million is the one to die from that vaccine, is that one enough, or do we need more people to die from it before you get that vaccine for your baby? That's sort of my approach. But then I also let them know that they don't have to get every vaccine on the schedule at the same time. And that's a mistake that I think a lot of pediatricians make. They hardline it, you either get all of them or none, or don't come to my office. But some of them are really more important than other ones. So the things that I really feel passionate about babies being protected from, I've been able to move the needle with families that were hardliners, never wanted a vaccine, but they're like, I get it, Dr. West, I live on a farm. I need to protect my baby with a DTaP because tetanus, my baby could get tetanus on the farm. My baby could get whooping cough. And so keeping it real, letting them know that, your child can get sick and this is what it will look like, and developing that trust, I think is what allows me to move the needle and get people where they need to be. But the moment because we're so polarized, you're conservative or you're progressive. There's no nuance, but there's nuance in everything. And we don't ever have a nuanced conversation about vaccines. So when you go to the hospital and you have a baby and they give you that first hepatitis B vaccine, and a lot of parents feel judged because they make you sign a declination form. But the big question is that medically necessary? Or are we doing that for public health reasons? And that's where people start to lose faith. They're like, my baby doesn't need this, but you're making me feel guilty. No, your baby doesn't need it right then. To be perfectly honest, and this is heresy, some pediatricians out there probably like going, I can't believe she said that, but it's true. Your baby's not at risk from hepatitis B a day after being born, because we know mom and dad don't have hepatitis B. We do that for public health reasons. So in sharing that kind of information, it just generates trust. And it says, I'm not stressed about you not getting a hepatitis B vaccine, but this is what I feel very passionate about your child getting, and this is why.
From a couple weeks ago, I had the superintendent of Chesterfield Schools on, and I asked him, what was the deal when kids came back to school? Like, what was the big thing? And I thought it would be, the vaccines, wearing a mask. I thought it may be the reading, writing, and arithmetic, all that. He said, no, we had to teach kids how to deal with each other again. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, they hadn't dealt with people for a couple of years. Now, all of a sudden, we have to figure that part out, whether they're masking or not, or whether we're doing that or not. All those things play a part. But he says that in reality, the real important part was, how do you deal with people and you haven't been around people for a couple of years?
And you have this level of anxiety because socially we all had a level of anxiety that was through the roof, and kids feel that. So they're going back into school. The political environment is like complete chaos. You know, the economy is kind of wonky. Everything is sort of unstable and like, hanging in the balance, and kids notice that
And kids feel it.
and they feel it.
There you go. On the mic, Mike. Doc West is here. One last time, how can people find you?
On the Insta at MyRVABaby, Facebook, at RVA Baby on Facebook, and www.myrvababy.com, or they can email me hello@myrvababy.com.
My RV. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, she's good at what she does. She's shining out there. It is an important topic. So we'd like to thank you for listening. This is On the Mic with Mike. As I say, make sure you take a listen to and support our sponsors and advertisers, because as I always say, the microphone ain't free. Plus, my grandkids need stuff. So make sure you that's real. They do. My wife is like Mrs. Claus. All right, so On the Mic with Mike. We got to go. Take care.